co-living you used to do as a student. This concept might go on. I mean, why not using it while you're working or while you're older, and why not having like several generations in your house? And that's exactly what, when we come to the cluster, and it's exactly the idea of the living. And there was one guy who told us, look, I met more people in 7 days within the project that I have met the last 7 years. It's 100% site built, but nevertheless, we have calculated the block as standard element, so you don't want to cut it on site. That we are very fast because we don't have to adjust it on the building site.
It's like a kit of blocks.
Exactly. My name is Henrik Siebenpfeiffer. I'm working for Duplex Architekten. I'm one of the partners of the company projects, which is called in German More Than Living, which we translate Mehr Als Wohnen. The project was done by Anne and Dan in 2007 with this company called Futurafrosch as a partner, architectural partner firm. They won the competition and were the first big project of the Zurich office. Duplex Architects is based in Zurich in Switzerland, founded by Anne Kessler and Dan Schurch in 2007. And now we have offices also in Germany, in the northern part of Germany, and in Paris. So I'm one of the operating partners of Duplex Architects. The delivery was in 2013 and 2015, because that's part of the project, that it's a real long process of discussing and developing the different parts of the project. So we develop different projects with the same approach. But what is really interesting is that the idea of More Than Living is that it's not only housing, but it's also a whole urban area we are developing. There's a kind of density which was quite interesting already in the project More Than Living, and which is the density is the ratio between the area, the land, and the square meters you can build. And so in More Than Living we are around 1.6, which was okay, which was normal. And now we're going for 2.6, so we try to densify the project to get more space, quality space from left land. So the project is basically, this is the zoom of the Zurich area. So you have the Zurich Lake, the airport. So just in the middle between the city center and the airport, kind of more industrial site. Used by the Swiss television, next to a motorway, next to the railway road. So it was not the best quality site. 75 hectares. Today, when you see the satellite, everything is built. But 12 years ago, really like an industrial site. So it was interesting to do this kind of lighthouse project on this site. It was detected by the cooperatives. And the cooperatives, there's a large tradition in Switzerland about this Genossenschaften, how we call them, to celebrate the century anniversary of those Genossenschaften. They grouped together to say, okay, we want now, it's like 100 years, we are building in a way that we group clients around a project, and we want to have the lighthouse new project. They created this group called More Than Living, Mehr Als Wohnen, to do this, to run this project on this site. In Switzerland, you can't own the land. So you have this, what we call a leasehold for the land. So the city gives the land and you pay just a rent for the lifetime. So they had spotted out this area to run a competition to show the 100 years of tradition. There was no state funding used for this project. Those cooperatives, they're private companies, but non-profit. The future owner of the houses are part of the company, and they're running this project to exactly to have like that you just pay the real cost of construction. And that's the idea of those cooperatives. Our approach for the urban layout was not like to fill up the land with the standard use of housing, but to create blocks, very massive blocks, what we call fat blocks. We create a lot of outer space, the exterior, and we have a huge density within this kind of construction blocks. Normally, when you do housing, 40 to 50 feet is the average size or the depth of a building, and we have some of them which are going for 100 feet, so they're really big and new typology. And so we won the competition. Then the other architects came on board. each block has a different approach to the constraints, because the blocks are big, they're deep, you need to bring sunlight inside. That was the challenge for each office. They took our topology and they took our design to develop their own topologies. So we have like a really kind of huge range of different solutions within the project. The power of this project is as well that is not like asking for new urban rules, which is a long procedure. We stay within the actual rules. So all the distance between the buildings, the way, the distance to the road, the distance of the views, everything is developed according to the normal standard urban rules. Cluster living, what we have developed is like, it's like a box in a box. You have like your small entity, which is the most private, is like your bed and your private room, but you have a bathroom, you have a small kitchen. Next layer is then a shared space. You have a bigger kitchen in the common space. Then you have the staircases, which are a different type of shared space. And then you go to these workshops, because there are lots of workshops foreseen, or spaces which can use for birthday parties or for bike repair, whatever, or a recording studio. And then you have those outside spaces. Each building is nearly composed as a small city.
Each building is about 100 people, 35 units.
13 blocks and 450 units. A kindergarten, 3 restaurants, a bakery shop, laundry room is in the basement, and it's common. Everyone uses it, so you don't have your washing machine in your apartment. Like this co-living in a student, what you used to do as a student. This concept might go on. I mean, why not using it while you're working or while you're older, and why not having like several generations in your house? And that's exactly what, when we come to the cluster, and it's exactly the idea of the living. It's like a very small neighborhood, like different degrees of neighborhood, and you have those you are living within one cluster, and then you have those you are on the same staircase, and then you have the surroundings. So you see that those 6-story high buildings with a very strong neighborhood. When you want to build with a cooperative, the cooperative, roughly $33,000 you have to pay to get in, and then you're part of this story, and you're allowed to get one of the apartment. And the rules are defined, and then within this project and within lots of projects, you need to engage that you will not own a car. The time you're living there, you won't use a car. You engage yourself on car sharing, on mobility. The number of parkings we have foreseen are for guests or for other reasons. So there's no parking space, no more parking space than really the minimum needed. And each of those groups, they are organized in a way that it's an own association. So the cluster, what we call cluster, which is like, in this case, for example, you have like 7 different groups joined together with this common space. They have created their own association with their own rules, with their own bank account. You're really living together. You care about the other one, and everyone engages in case of fire, for example, to care, to look after the other neighbor. And that we explained that to the fire department, and that's why they said, okay, we agree not to apply the hotel fire regulations, but really the living. These way of putting the clusters together, they can change within the story. So they're slightly changing. So we have 2-1 plus a small one here, and on a second floor we have like 4 clusters.
It's like 6 units sharing a bank account and being part of like the extended family.
It depends
18 people. The fire department is determining the sense of community, family psychology. How many people can you actually really care about?
You have this kind of the shared areas in between the units, and this is one example. I mean, it's been furnished by the cluster inhabitants. You can watch television in your own room, but you can also share. And this is I think this is what's really interesting. And there was one guy who told us, look, I met more people in 7 days within the project that I have met the last 7 years.
Who is forming these extended families?
We did workshops, which also choose like a more traditional layout, but able to choose your favorite apartment and what suits you well. And normally it's a lifetime project. Stay within your cluster, and it's not Normally in those kind of housing, you don't have a large turnover.
You leave, what happens?
It goes back to the community, kind of owner, because you can't be kicked out of your apartment because you own it for lifetime. You can't give it to your children. If you want to move out, you get your entrance fee back, but that's all. And then you're just off. And then the organization, the cooperative, they do have an office within the building. And here the investor, which is the cooperative, they are running the project. So they have the funding, they have the experience, the banks are financing projects, they have all this knowledge, professional knowledge to run a project. Gathering together and doing the project and having the professionals doing the project for them. Second typology we have built, which is the building M. We created a large staircase. It's nearly free space. And the interesting part, staircase is like a plaza, a courtyard, and we started to create openings, windows towards the staircase, which is not usual normally. The disadvantage of having those large blocks is totally turned around into an advantage because you get this extra space. And this allowed ourselves as well to get like those details of a kind of sculpture within, bringing light into the buildings. This block allows to have a good energy performance, just 5 kilowatt per hour per square feet. The thickness of the walls on the outside, it's 50 centimeters, which is 1.6 feet. So we have really thick walls. It's a kind of brick wall. Inside the brick, we put in insulation. So we have volcanic stone inside the brick, and it's like a traditional brick layering. And inside, it's the thermal insulation. So you can put on the outside, you just have your normal facade, and on the inside you have a plaster wall, and that's all. We have supported other architects on the side. A standard balloon frame. There's one house with foamed concrete. Inside the concrete you have foamed glass elements, which they're doing the insulation. So that was quite experimental, but it worked really out well. It's 100% site built, but nevertheless we have calculated the block as standard element, so you don't want to cut it on site because it takes lots of time. So we have adapted the openings to actually the size of the bricks, that we can use full bricks and we don't have to cut them. So this was all designed that we are very fast because we don't have to adjust it on the building side.
It's like a kit of blocks.
Exactly. It has the advantage of everyone can do it. I mean, you don't need special technology. It's like brick structure as we use. So almost every worker, craftsman can build up those houses, and they are completely at the end of the life cycle. You can completely recycle them. Philosophy of our company is use simple materials, respect the materials, don't try to put everything together, don't glue things, don't like composite materials. Stay simple but clean, and then you can recycle it as well. We have a kind of crossover of different ways of living, creating office spaces today, hotel lobbies, and they look like a living room, or we are creating restaurants like kitchens, and be more flexible about new living forms, new way of living, and let us give the power to the people to create their own way of living. And this say, if you're developing above 10,000 square meters, you need to have more architects together.
What would you say is the most innovative aspect?
3 points: students, apartments, put that into operation on a larger scale for different generations and different ages. I think this is socially very interesting. And the second point is that we have, by being very generous about the whole setup and having big blocks, lots of space over. So if you reduce everything on what is just necessary, we design space however the inhabitants would like to use it. Even for the outside, we had some spaces we just say, okay, we are not planning them, and now you have gardens there. The third aspect, which was more architectural theory, is the idea of a competition at the urban scale and on the very low typology scale. The same philosophy of the small detail you can find in the larger scale.
The exterior common areas are sort of like the living room between each of the 13 houses.
Exactly.
Same cluster shared space on a molecular level. that's repeated all the way up through the three scales, the unit, the cluster, and site plan.
Exactly. And the public space within your apartment is at the same range as the public space outside the apartment.
Henrik, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay.